Olivia Bennet emerged from a sleek black sedan, her impeccable navy suit a testament to both elegance and commanding authority as she approached the magnificent residence of the Hartley family. As the chief executive of a prominent technology conglomerate, her objective was to finalize a staggering $900 million agreement, a transaction poised to redefine her company's trajectory and solidify a strategic alliance with one of the nation's most established and influential dynasties of wealth and privilege. The instant Olivia made her appearance at the grand entryway, every individual in the assembly turned their gaze towards her. A hushed murmur, like an unseen ripple, spread through the gathered individuals. A woman adorned with a pearl necklace cast a dismissive glance in Olivia's direction, her lips curling into a frigid smile. At that precise moment, Michael Hartley, the sole heir to the family's sprawling empire, lifted his champagne flute and, with a voice laced with biting sarcasm, posed the question, "Has someone mistakenly admitted the service staff ahead of schedule?" A wave of uncomfortable laughter swept through the opulent banquet hall. Olivia momentarily froze, her heart pierced by the unprovoked barb, yet she swiftly regained her composure. No one moved to offer her support. Not even Richard Hartley, the venerable patriarch of the family, offered a word. With a gracious smile, she excused herself from the gathering, notwithstanding the fact that her dessert remained untouched. News of the $900 million accord between Olivia's technology firm and the Hartley Empire disseminated with remarkable speed throughout the business community. For many, it represented a monumental achievement for both parties. However, for Olivia, it signified a profoundly personal triumph, a testament to years spent dismantling invisible impediments, transcending prejudice, and prevailing in arduous negotiations. She was more than simply a chief executive. She embodied a beacon of aspiration for all those who had ever been overlooked, silenced, or underestimated. As the resplendent sunset cast a warm luminescence upon the estate, the Hartley mansion shimmered like a precious gem upon the Beverly Hills incline. A procession of gleaming luxury automobiles lined the driveway, and crystalline chandeliers cast a dazzling radiance through the mansion's elaborate windows, clear emblems of the Hartley family's unparalleled influence and affluence. Descending once more from the sleek black sedan, Olivia, her tailored navy jacket accentuating her poised demeanor and innate grace, made her entrance. The deliberate click of her stiletto heels on the marble steps echoed with a steady, resolute rhythm, each stride a silent declaration of the esteemed position she had painstakingly attained. Her luminous brown complexion and the meticulously styled updo of her coiffed hair radiated a rare self-assurance, while a singular, understated message was conveyed in her eyes. She was present not as a mere guest, but as the arbiter of a pivotal agreement capable of reshaping the technological landscape. As she crossed the threshold into the grand foyer, she passed through imposing doors intricately carved with delicate floral patterns. Conversation subsided into discreet whispers. A few countenances displayed genuine admiration, while others betrayed surprise and doubt. Few had anticipated that the celebrated chief executive of a leading technology firm, so widely lauded in the press, would be a young black woman. Olivia, however, remained entirely unperturbed. She offered a serene, courteous smile, her gaze sweeping across the room with quiet determination, a silent affirmation that her worth resided not in idle gossip or others' preconceived notions, but in her proven expertise, unwavering integrity, and visionary foresight. In the far corner, Michael Hartley observed her, a calculating smirk playing on his lips, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism flickering in his eyes. Olivia advanced towards Richard Hartley, the family's patriarch, extending her hand for a greeting, only to be interrupted by a haughty voice that pierced the elegantly charged atmosphere at that very moment. "Did someone inadvertently admit the help too soon?" The icy tone cut through the silence like a sharpened blade. Every head instantly swiveled towards the speaker. Michael Hartley, the sole son and prized heir of the Hartley family's multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Michael stood adjacent to the long table draped in white silk, one hand gracefully lifting his sparkling champagne flute. His gaze was cold and self-congratulatory. The crystal prisms of the chandelier cast flickering shadows across his sharp features, imbuing his eyes with an unnerving depth, simultaneously captivating and chilling. The smirk on his lips conveyed no genuine warmth, only disdain masked by a veneer of politeness. In that instant, time seemed to halt. All conversation ceased, leaving only the soft melodies of background music to accentuate the mounting tension. The guests exchanged furtive glances. A few forced, nervous chuckles punctuated the stillness, attempts to mask their discomfort behind polite facades. Those hollow sounds felt like 100 tiny pricks to Olivia's heart. A woman accustomed to commanding the grandest stages, leading thousands of employees and navigating countless arduous challenges, now found herself publicly humiliated before dozens of strangers. Her chest tightened, her face flushed with a mixture of indignation and mortification, yet Olivia maintained an impeccable composure. Not far away, Richard Hartley, the esteemed patriarch and head of the family, stood in silent observation. He did not intervene. His eyes flickered with a hint of uncertainty, perhaps concerned for the family's reputation or reluctant to contradict his son in the presence of distinguished guests. Richard's silence represented a bitter acquiescence, amplifying Olivia's profound sense of hurt and isolation. Amidst the tempest of her emotions, Olivia held her posture erect, meeting Michael's gaze with quiet steadfastness. Though no words were exchanged, her powerful silence conveyed a profound contempt for his vulgar insinuation. She recognized that she represented not merely herself, but all who had ever been belittled or subjected to similar discrimination. Michael raised his champagne glass a fraction higher, relishing her reaction. Clearly, this was not his inaugural act of arrogance. Raised in an environment of privilege, he had inherited every advantage, yet lacked even a shred of basic empathy. His taunt served as yet another irrefutable demonstration of how wealth and status had corrupted him. The tension remained palpable, suffocating. Olivia's eyes swept across the room one final time. She noticed several younger guests lowering their heads, avoiding her gaze. They grasped the significance of what had just transpired, but lacked the courage to voice their dissent or even offer a flicker of solidarity. Then, with a dignified smile, Olivia offered Richard a graceful nod, a final, courteous gesture of farewell, and turned to depart. Her heels clicked with renewed confidence on the marble floor, louder and more assured than before. She exited the hall with her head held high, even as Michael Hartley's challenging, self-satisfied stare followed her. What Michael failed to comprehend was that his thoughtless insult would not merely wound Olivia, it would ignite a conflict that he himself had inadvertently initiated. And in that confrontation, the arrogant often face the most severe consequences. The rhythmic tapping of Olivia's heels on the marble floor resonated like the steady beat of a victorious anthem, shattering the oppressive tension Michael Hartley had so recently created. Guests tracked her every movement, their gazes flickering with a blend of astonishment and restrained admiration for the remarkable equanimity she displayed in the face of public degradation. As Olivia paused at the grand doors of the hall, she turned once more to survey the room. The faint smile gracing her lips conveyed neither fragility nor resentment. Instead, it spoke volumes. Regardless of how unjustly she was treated, she remained entirely in command of herself. Michael caught that smile, and for a fleeting moment, his champagne flute trembled in his hand, despite his concerted effort to appear unruffled. Nearby, Richard Hartley, Michael's father and the esteemed patriarch, stood immobile, his expression inscrutable. He watched Olivia depart without uttering a single word. His silence served as a harsh endorsement of his son's contempt. Richard was fully aware of the repercussions of the evening's insult. Yet, his pride as the head of the Hartley name prevented him from objecting in front of their esteemed guests. By prioritizing his family's reputation over justice, he became complicit in the suffering inflicted upon an innocent woman. Michael, after a brief flash of surprise at Olivia's dignified response, swiftly resumed his air of indifferent composure. He offered a casual chuckle, as if her departure were merely a minor power play, a subtle reminder of the dominance he felt was his birthright. He was accustomed to obedience, to having his missteps overlooked due to his father's name and wealth. To Michael, Olivia was simply an inconvenient yet dispensable casualty. Yet, beneath his outward bravado, Michael experienced an unsettling tremor of doubt. He had publicly humiliated many individuals previously, but none had departed with such poise and quiet dignity. Olivia's steady gaze and her final, proud smile had created a subtle crack in his self-assurance, planting a seed of uncertainty regarding the strength and authority he so highly valued. Though he would never admit it, her reaction had struck at the fragile core of his vanity. Outside the Hartley estate, the cool night air soothed the residual heat on Olivia's cheeks. A gentle breeze stirred loose strands of her hair as she stood tall, inhaling a deep, fortifying breath. In that moment, she felt the full weight of the daily struggle she waged against bias, against prejudice, against the invisible injustices embedded within society. A young attendant bowed respectfully at the gate. Olivia returned a gracious nod, an unspoken expression of gratitude. She understood that true fortitude was not measured by sharp retorts or explosive confrontations, but by unwavering self-respect and an unyielding resolve, even when the world seemed determined to crush her. She settled into her black sedan and softly closed the door. The vehicle glided away from the glittering mansion, leaving behind the dazzling lights and opulent sounds of the party, but also initiating the first fissures in the Hartley family's foundation of power. Olivia recognized that this was merely the inception. She would not be silenced. Rather than resort to petty retaliation, she would leverage her integrity and expertise to secure a decisive victory. Within the hall, Michael Hartley raised his champagne glass with practiced ease, determined to suppress the unsettling flutter in his chest. He could not yet perceive that Olivia Bennet's composed defiance had set in motion a reckoning far more consequential than he had ever envisioned. The sedan moved silently through the gates of the Hartley estate, gradually disappearing into the darkness of the deserted thoroughfares. Olivia leaned back in her seat, her eyes half closed, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had believed that maintaining her calm and composure would feel like a victory upon leaving the gathering. However, instead, she now confronted an intense, tension-laden, internal battle. The moment she entered her downtown apartment, her phone vibrated with an urgent dispatch from the board chair. "We need to speak immediately. The situation is extremely serious." A single line, yet sufficient to indicate that the ramifications of the evening were already propagating and would prove difficult to contain. Olivia sat by the expansive window, observing the distant flicker of city lights. Her phone continued to illuminate with incoming messages from board members, all expressing worry and anxiety, imploring her to return to the negotiating table and salvage the $900 million agreement that they believed could revolutionize the company's future. However, Olivia understood that returning would signify capitulating to the humiliation inflicted by Michael Hartley. Her conscience would not permit it. The night wore on, yet sleep remained elusive. The room remained shrouded in darkness and absolute silence, a stark contrast to the inner turmoil raging within her. Memories of deeply buried wounds resurfaced, vivid and painful, as if they had occurred only yesterday. She recalled her inaugural day at a prestigious university, surrounded by students from affluent families. The contemptuous gazes, the whispered cruelties behind her back, the stifled giggles as she navigated the long corridors, all still resonated within her mind. Back then, she had vowed never again to permit anyone to belittle her. She would demonstrate that one's skin color and background could never dictate a person's intrinsic value. These memories intertwined with the image of Michael Hartley's arrogant countenance from that evening, fortifying her resolve. Yet her heart ached whenever she recalled Richard Hartley's expression, the look of a father unwilling to champion what was right, silently observing his son humiliate another to uphold the family's hollow honor. Olivia pondered. Is the allure of money and status truly worth more than self-respect and dignity? Her phone illuminated once more. This time it was a call from Sarah Mitchell, her trusted confidant and the company's vice president. Olivia hesitated before answering. Olivia, the board is on edge. Some members are advocating for an emergency vote to rescind our decision. They contend we cannot afford to forfeit such a substantial investment. Sarah's voice quivered with apprehension. Sarah, I comprehend your concerns, Olivia responded calmly, though her chest tightened. However, if I concede now, everything we have diligently built, our ethical framework, our integrity, the very honor of this company, will become meaningless. I understand, Sarah replied hesitantly. But are you certain this is the most prudent course of action? Sometimes one must endure a degree of discomfort to achieve something greater. Olivia shook her head slightly, her voice soft yet unwavering. No, Sarah, not this time. No one possesses the right to exchange dignity for financial gain, whether it amounts to $900 million or more. Once the call concluded, Olivia sank back into her chair, exhaustion weighing heavily upon her shoulders. Outside, the dawn was breaking, dispelling the darkness, but failing to quell her inner turmoil. The sleepless night had been one of the most arduous of her life. Nevertheless, it would also shape her destiny and that of the company. Deep down, Olivia knew this decision would precipitate immense challenges and formidable hardships. But she also understood that the most difficult choices are often the most righteous, decisions she would never regret. Meanwhile, within the opulent confines of the Hartley mansion, Michael Hartley also remained awake throughout the night. Unlike Olivia, his restlessness stemmed not from moral conviction, but from a vague sense of unease and burgeoning doubt. For the first time, Michael recognized that his power and wealth could not procure everything, a realization that incensed him more than ever. The initial rays of dawn filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating Olivia's resolute expression. The sleepless night had left her weary, but it had also clarified her determination more acutely than ever before. For her, there was no alternative but to confront every challenge head-on. Precisely at 7 o'clock in the morning, Olivia entered the company's grand boardroom, where the board of directors and senior executives had already convened. Each face reflected a palpable anxiety and uncertainty. The atmosphere was charged with tension, each breath seeming more labored than the last. Olivia stood before them, her gaze slowly encompassing the familiar faces. In that moment, she realized the extent to which many had abandoned their convictions, how readily they were inclined to succumb to the material allure of a $900 million deal. They had neglected the fundamental truth that the values they championed held greater significance than mere monetary gain. Her calm, clear voice shattered the oppressive silence. I am aware that you are all cognizant of the events that transpired last night at the Hartley estate, and I acknowledge that this $900 million partnership represents a remarkable opportunity. However, I cannot and will not compromise our dignity and principles for financial gain. The room immediately erupted into a cacophony of voices. Peter Anderson, the chief financial officer, sprang to his feet, his tone sharp with frustration. Olivia, you cannot unilaterally make such a decision. This directly impacts the company's viability. Olivia remained perfectly composed, her gaze fixed unwaveringly on Peter. Peter, I appreciate your concern, but the reason this company has flourished is precisely because we have never wavered on matters of justice or respect for others. To forge a partnership with the Hartleys at this juncture would betray the very values upon which we have built this enterprise. That is purely a matter of personal sentiment, interjected Margaret Lewis, a seasoned board member. We cannot allow personal feelings to jeopardize such a significant opportunity. A brief apology from the Hartleys would suffice. "This is a $900 million deal, Olivia." Olivia exhaled softly. Margaret was correct regarding the business implications, but mistaken concerning ethical considerations. She gave a firm shake of her head. "This is not about emotions, Margaret. It is about respect and integrity. A perfunctory apology will not erase the public humiliation we endured." Peter's brow furrowed, his voice laced with apprehension. "If we withdraw, our stock price will plummet. How do you intend to explain that to our shareholders?" "I will inform them that we do not engage in business with cowardice," Olivia replied instantly, her voice steely. "We conduct business with honor and integrity. That is what will sustain and propel this company's growth." The boardroom fell silent once more, but this time it was a silence of thoughtful consideration. Even those who disagreed recognized the inherent power in Olivia's words. Elsewhere, in his private office, Michael Hartley observed the unfolding crisis on his mobile device with a smirk. He reveled in the board's disarray, confident that Olivia would soon yield under internal pressure. To him, this contest was already decisively won. What he failed to grasp was that his own excessive self-assurance blinded him to a crucial reality. Olivia Bennett was not an easily subdued adversary. Back in the boardroom, Olivia met each person's gaze directly. "I am not seeking unanimous consensus. However, as the leader of this organization, I am officially withdrawing from the Hartley Agreement, and I accept full accountability for any ensuing repercussions." Her clear, forceful declaration brought an abrupt halt to the room's clamor. Everyone recognized that this was not merely a personal statement. It was the firm stance of a woman prepared to defend her honor and that of her company at any cost. Olivia turned and exited the boardroom, leaving behind a palpable stillness and a leadership team in disarray. She understood that the decision made that day would undoubtedly provoke storms of controversy. However, it was a choice she would never regret. And deep within her heart, Olivia knew that her most formidable battle was only just beginning. Merely hours after concluding the tense board meeting, Olivia Bennett stood confidently at the podium in a vast hall, addressing hundreds of reporters and media representatives. Flashbulbs erupted incessantly as curious, expectant eyes fixated upon her, awaiting an official explanation for the decision that was sending shockwaves through the business world. Olivia was attired in a simple yet commanding white suit, her hair neatly pulled into a chignon, her eyes unwavering with a clear resolve. A hush descended upon the room as she approached the microphone, leaning in slightly as if about to deliver the most critical statement of her career. "My dignity is not for sale at any price," she declared, her voice ringing out with clarity and strength. "I am officially withdrawing from the $900 million partnership with the Hartley Corporation." The room erupted in a wave of stunned murmurs and a flurry of rapid-fire questions. Reporters jostled, clamoring to be the first to pose their inquiries, desperate for more details regarding this startling reversal. "Miss Bennett, are you concerned about potential negative reactions from your shareholders?" inquired a senior journalist, his face etched with skepticism. Olivia responded with composure and firmness. "I trust that our shareholders understand our fundamental values. We cannot construct our future upon agreements that compromise our honor and integrity." "But ma'am, isn't this decision driven by excessive emotion?" questioned a young female reporter, pressing further. "Some suggest you are allowing personal feelings to override the company's best interests." Olivia met her gaze unflinchingly. "If defending one's self-respect and dignity is deemed emotional, then yes, I am acting on emotion. However, I firmly believe that in both business and life, certain principles must remain inviolable, irrespective of the circumstances." Backstage, Sarah Mitchell, Olivia's close friend and the company's vice president, watched with a mixture of concern and profound pride. She recognized that Olivia was undertaking an action few leaders dared, standing firm on principle in a world where profit invariably takes precedence. Meanwhile, in the grand office of the Hartley mansion, Michael Hartley observed the live press conference, his expression hardening with rage and unexpected apprehension. Olivia's bold declaration struck at the very heart of his pride, making him realize for the first time that his presumed control was beginning to erode. "She actually went through with it," he muttered, his anger escalating. He was accustomed to individuals yielding to the influence of the Hartley name, but Olivia Bennet had caught him entirely off guard. Back on stage, the press conference continued to crackle with tension as reporters lobbed incisive questions concerning racism, discrimination, and the ethical considerations prevalent in major corporate dealings. Olivia responded to each inquiry with measured intellect, making it clear that her decision wasn't a rash impulse, but the outcome of a deep internal conflict with her most cherished principles. A prominent news anchor from a major broadcasting company posed the concluding question in a sincere tone. "Ms. Bennet, what message would you like to impart to aspiring entrepreneurs, particularly those encountering prejudice and opposition from formidable entities like the Hartley family?" Olivia directed her gaze straight into the camera, her voice resonating with profound conviction. "My message is straightforward. No individual possesses the authority to dictate your value based on your ethnicity, gender, or background. Genuine prosperity is not quantified by financial accumulation, but by the measure of self-respect and integrity you maintain when confronted with adversity and pressure." Her pronouncements disseminated instantaneously, dominating media coverage and galvanizing social platforms with millions of reshares, all commending her bravery and unwavering stance. On the platform, Olivia remained resolute, her countenance unperturbed. She understood that further challenges awaited, yet in that particular instant, her clarity was sharper than ever before. The essence is not to evade the storm, but to possess the fortitude to confront it and emerge with your self-worth and fundamental values intact. Merely hours after Olivia's impactful declaration, which continued to headline news and resonate throughout the corporate sphere, an unforeseen development, entirely unanticipated by Michael Hartley, utterly transformed the dynamic of their conflict. That very evening, as Michael frantically attempted to quell the initial embers of the escalating situation, his mobile device buzzed incessantly with notifications. A brief video, less than 2 minutes in length, was circulating with astonishing rapidity, garnering millions of views within mere hours. With a pounding heart, Michael initiated playback, observing himself standing in that lavish ballroom, a glass of champagne in hand, projecting an air of arrogant disdain. Did someone mistakenly usher in the support staff prematurely? The footage, captured discreetly, most likely from an employee's device, documented the precise moment of his insult. Someone he had completely overlooked, an unobtrusive observer in his perception, now held the irrefutable evidence that would shake the very foundations of the Hartley empire. Within hours, the clip had achieved viral status, inundated with acrimonious condemnation. The trending hashtag, #RespectIsPriceless, dominated every prominent social network, fueled by widespread public indignation. Social media users vociferously denounced Michael's haughtiness and his apparent racial bias, demanding a public retraction from the Hartley family and even advocating for a cessation of patronage for all of the family's enterprises. At Hartley headquarters, utter pandemonium ensued. The public relations department was overwhelmed with a deluge of inquiry. The press and significant business associates, all seeking clarification. Hartley's stock value experienced a precipitous decline as institutional investors reacted with alarm, divesting their holdings. In a single night, the affluence and reputation the Hartleys had meticulously cultivated over decades teetered precariously close to ruin. Seated within his expansive office, Michael stared at his phone, cycling through disbelief, then anger, and finally, palpable fear. How could this have transpired? Who dared to defame the Hartley name? Who harbored the audacity to challenge his absolute dominion? In his internal narrative, Michael had never considered himself to be in the wrong. Power and privilege were his inherent entitlements. He was accustomed to deference from others, to every misstep being concealed by the pervasive influence of his family. Yet, the video now starkly exposed the pervasive hypocrisy he had assiduously masked for years. Confronted by a barrage of indignant commentary and widespread online outrage, Michael felt a growing apprehension of a complete forfeiture of control. Concurrently, in her own office, Olivia was immersed in perusing a continuous stream of supportive messages arriving from across the globe. She recognized that the video would undoubtedly exacerbate an already volatile scenario, but it also served as the most compelling validation that her stance was not an isolated act, but rather the collective voice of numerous individuals who had endured belittlement and discrimination. Sarah Mitchell entered, a tablet in her grasp, her eyes alight as she shared the latest social media statistics. "Olivia, it's exploding out there. Millions are aligned with you. Hartley Corporation is facing unprecedented pressure. I've never witnessed such a fiercely unified public outcry." Olivia responded with a thoughtful nod, her resolve unshaken. "Sarah, this is no longer solely about Michael and me. Our objective now is to convey an unequivocal message. Respect and human dignity are not commodities available for purchase at any price. That is my enduring conviction, and it is what I shall steadfastly defend." At the Hartley estate, Richard Hartley strode purposefully into Michael's office, his countenance a canvas of fury and profound disappointment. "Michael, do you comprehend the magnitude of your actions? A single injudicious remark has plunged our entire family into an unprecedented crisis." Michael looked up, attempting to modulate his voice. "Father, I will rectify this situation. I simply require additional time." "Time," Richard interjected, his tone laced with irascibility. "This is not a matter that can be easily papered over with financial resources and influence. You have unequivocally overstepped this time." His father's pronouncements struck Michael with the chilling impact of icy water, shattering the ingrained pride he had always taken for granted. For the very first instance, he apprehended that affluence and standing could dissipate instantaneously when confronted by the combined force of public sentiment and the unwavering principles of individuals like Olivia Bennet. That evening, the social media tempest showed no signs of abating, and the conflict between inherent worth and material influence had truly entered its most critical, unyielding phase. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the urban panorama, a gentle light filtered through the substantial glass panes of Michael's office windows, seemingly attempting to illuminate the profound fissures within an empire he had always considered impregnable. Following a sleepless night fraught with tension, Michael felt more acutely than ever that his authority and standing were on the precipice of collapse. That morning, Hartley Corporation's stock value experienced a dramatic 18% decline within the initial hours of trading, unleashing unparalleled turmoil upon the financial markets. Major investors succumbed to panic, liquidating their holdings en masse, while financial traders frantically disseminated reports detailing the dire predicament. Never before had the Hartley name, long perceived as an unshakable emblem of prestige and influence, appeared so precarious and vulnerable. In the emergency boardroom convened at the Hartley estate, Richard Hartley fixed his gaze upon the live stock ticker, witnessing the share price spiraling downwards. His face had turned ashen with consternation. A profound silence enveloped the room. None dared to utter a word. Finally, Richard turned to Michael, his voice conveying a chilling coldness, yet trembling with suppressed anger. "Michael, what have you done? This corporation is not your personal plaything to be irresponsibly dismantled by your arrogance." Michael remained motionless, his gaze distant and chillingly impassive. He offered no verbal response, but a palpable disquiet burned in his eyes. He had never before encountered the tangible repercussions of his conduct. The deeply ingrained pride of a man who believed the world revolved around him began to crumble, supplanted by a surging tide of fear. That afternoon, The board of directors convened an urgent session. Their expressions were severe, their collective displeasure palpable. To stabilize both our public image and operational integrity, Chairman Thomas Gallagher, a long-standing associate and close confidant of Richard, declared, "We are compelled to immediately suspend Michael from all directorial responsibilities, pending a comprehensive investigation and the restoration of public confidence. This represents the sole viable course of action." Michael's eyes widened in astonishment, then flared with indignant panic. "You cannot enact such a measure. This is my family's enterprise." Thomas met his gaze with an unyielding stare, disappointment evident in his tone. "Michael, you precipitated this crisis through your arrogance and your failure to accept accountability. Do not forget who is responsible for placing us in this predicament." Michael fell silent, a potent mixture of bitterness and fury coursing through him. He had never envisioned that those who had once deferred to him would ever turn against him with such decisive opposition. For the first time in his existence, he felt a complete loss of control. Outside the corporate headquarters, hundreds congregated, brandishing protest banners. They vociferously advocated for a boycott of all Hartley products and services, chanting with intense fervor, "We will not tolerate bigotry. Dignity is invaluable." Live depictions of the demonstration disseminated widely across social media, intensifying the pressure on the company. Every brand associated with Hartley began issuing official statements, publicly distancing themselves, terminating advertising campaigns, and severing partnerships. The media characterized the situation as one of the most severe corporate crises in American history, with all scrutiny focused squarely upon Michael Hartley, the individual who had instigated this scandal. Alone within the confines of his vast estate office, Michael stood by the window, observing the escalating chaos below, his mind in a state of profound disarray. He could scarcely comprehend that a thoughtless gesture on his part had precipitated such catastrophic repercussions. The bulwarks of power he had meticulously erected over the years had become utterly meaningless in the face of public opinion and the unyielding dignity of a woman he had once disparaged. Richard entered quietly, his demeanor somber, yet composed. "Michael, it is time for you to confront the consequences of your actions. I have consistently shielded you from your minor transgressions. This time, I can only permit you to assume personal responsibility." Michael met his father's gaze, experiencing a depth of desolation he had never before encountered. "Father, is there any possibility of salvaging this situation?" Richard inclined his head, a shadow of sadness crossing his features. "Perhaps, but it will undoubtedly be the most instructive, albeit costly, lesson you will ever receive. Arrogance is never a true indicator of power, Michael. I sincerely hope you will come to understand this." As Richard departed, Michael felt for the first time that he was not merely losing influence or status. He was forfeiting the trust and respect of everyone around him. Outside, the protesters' chants continued to echo, a stark reminder that the price of arrogance is invariably the steepest. While the Hartley family engaged in a desperate struggle to contain the escalating crisis, in another part of the city, Olivia Bennet encountered a completely divergent and entirely unexpected turn of events. From the early morning hours, Olivia's office had been abuzz with unprecedented activity. Telephones rang incessantly, and her inbox overflowed with partnership proposals from prominent domestic and international corporations, entities she had long aspired to collaborate with. In the mere 24 hours since the video had gone viral, over a dozen new offers had materialized, each originating from companies renowned for their integrity, robust ethical frameworks, and a genuine commitment to prioritizing people over profit. Sarah Mitchell entered Olivia's office, clutching a portfolio of documents bearing familiar corporate insignia, her expression radiating excitement and pride. "Olivia, I've never encountered anything comparable. Major players such as Sterling Global, North Star Industries, and Wilson Group are all seeking to partner with us. They are demonstrably drawn to your integrity and your steadfast stance." Olivia quietly perused the documents, her expression serene and humble. Rather than reveling in this sudden triumph, she offered a gentle smile. "Sarah, you know that this is not solely my victory. It belongs to everyone who has demonstrated the courage to champion dignity and principle. I am merely a small component of this collective effort." "But, Olivia," Sarah interjected earnestly, "your bravery and your refusal to yield have inspired countless individuals. You have demonstrated to everyone that certain values hold greater significance than monetary gain." Olivia gazed contemplatively out the window. "I recognize that, Sarah, but life and our endeavors do not cease with this singular achievement. We still have a considerable amount of work to accomplish, and our responsibility now is more profound than ever before." While Olivia maintained her composed professionalism, abstaining from all interview requests and public appearances, the media's admiration for her quiet fortitude grew even more pronounced. Social platforms buzzed with accolades for her humility and noble character, transforming her into an icon of courage and ethical conviction within the business world. Elsewhere, Michael Hartley monitored the news of Olivia's remarkable resurgence with a palpable sense of bitter indignation. Mere days prior, he had been convinced of his ability to control every aspect of the situation. Now, however, everything had unraveled. Not only had Olivia weathered his affront, but she had emerged significantly stronger, and every commendation she received felt like a direct accusation against him, a perpetual reminder of his humiliating failure. Exacerbating matters, the prestigious corporations vying to support Olivia served as a silent repudiation of the Hartley family. Firms that had previously been hesitant to engage with the family were now flocking to Olivia Bennet, a woman Michael had once dismissed. "This is preposterous," he muttered, consumed by impotent rage. "I cannot believe a single careless remark afforded her such an effortless victory." Yet, deep within, Michael acknowledged that this was not a minor oversight. It stemmed from his ingrained arrogance and pervasive contempt, and such a transgression invariably carries a substantial price. Back in her office, Olivia meticulously reviewed each proposal, prioritizing collaborations with entities that not only possessed significant financial capacity but also shared her company's foundational values. Her objective, in her estimation, was not to capitalize on this fleeting moment of triumph, but to ensure the unwavering consistency of her actions and the principles she had consistently advocated. 1 week later, Olivia formally finalized alliances with several of the most reputable firms, securing agreements that substantially surpassed the value of the initial $900 million contract, thereby charting a new, more sustainable trajectory. Although her extraordinary success garnered widespread admiration, Olivia remained humble and refrained from any self-congratulatory pronouncements. That very humility further amplified the respect Olivia commanded, substantiating the notion that genuine triumph lies not in defeating an adversary, but in steadfastly upholding one's principles and personal dignity. In this quiet contest for integrity, Olivia Bennet did not merely ascend, she disseminated a potent message that could not be disregarded. That evening, immediately following the formalization of the new partnership agreements, Olivia Bennet received a distinguished invitation from the conveners of the Global Leadership Summit, an esteemed congregation of influential figures, social advocates, and accomplished entrepreneurs from across the globe. The prevailing theme for this year's gathering was one that, while perennial, consistently necessitates profound introspection: the cost of dignity. That night, Olivia graced the expansive stage before an audience numbering in the thousands. Soft spotlighting cast an elegant glow upon her tailored white ensemble. Her demeanor was serene, yet her eyes radiated an inner strength and unwavering resolve. A profound silence descended upon the hall, as if every individual present could sense the significance of the moment. She commenced her address, her voice clear yet gentle, carrying an imperceptible force that captivated the entire assembly. Dignity is an attribute we should never treat as a commodity to be bought or exchanged. Yet in life, we are frequently presented with a critical choice. Should we compromise our dignity and self-respect in pursuit of what we designate as success? I stand before you this evening, not because I have invariably made the correct decisions, but because I, too, once faced that very choice, and I discovered that dignity incurs a remarkably high price. She paused, her gaze sweeping warmly across the room, establishing an unspoken connection with each listener. Many of us may erroneously believe that dignity is an indulgence reserved solely for those who already possess an abundance of material wealth. However, I wish for you to understand that dignity is an inherent right belonging to each and every one of us, and no one can divest us of it unless we willingly permit them to do so. Olivia then proceeded to narrate her personal experience with the Hartley Corporation, articulating it with a delicate yet candid precision that painted a vivid and deeply resonant picture. Not long ago, I equated success with multi-million-dollar contracts and cordial interactions with influential figures. However, I was mistaken. True success is not defined by the numerical value of a contract. It is rather our capacity to steadfastly uphold our self-respect when confronted with challenges and to unequivocally demand that same respect for ourselves. Her address culminated in an emotional crescendo as she powerfully reinforced her central thesis. Success is rendered meaningless if we compromise our dignity and self-respect in its attainment. We can accrue wealth, but monetary gain can never repurchase the self-respect we forfeit. For a fleeting moment, the hall remained hushed, only to erupt into an extended standing ovation. Olivia's message disseminated instantaneously across every news outlet and social media feed, transforming into a global topic of discourse. She not only inspired nascent leaders, but also reawakened a dormant sense of self-respect and pride within countless hearts. In a distant sector of the city, Michael Hartley observed the address displayed on a colossal screen within his office. His formerly impassive expression contorted into a grimace as each of Olivia's words struck a deeper chord within his wounded pride. He had never experienced such a crushing sense of defeat. Every sentence she uttered felt like a direct indictment of him, compelling him to confront the ramifications of his thoughtless actions. "Who does she believe she is?" Michael grumbled, consumed by bitter frustration. Yet, deep down, he recognized the undeniable truth. Olivia had triumphed in this confrontation not due to any inherent superiority and strength, but because she stood firmly on the side of what was morally right, championing dignity and self-respect, qualities he had never truly valued. Back within the auditorium, Olivia concluded her remarks with a heartfelt appeal, her voice resonating with gentle resolve. "We cannot dictate the manner in which others treat us, but we possess the agency to choose our response. I sincerely hope that each of us, irrespective of our position, will perpetually remember that dignity represents the most precious possession we hold, something never to be bartered away under any circumstances." Once again, the audience rose to their feet, offering a resounding ovation. Olivia responded with a humble smile and a graceful acknowledgement of their support, deeply moved by their genuine affirmation. In that profound moment, she understood that the potency of sincere words, unyielding conviction, and personal self-respect possessed the capacity to reshape the world, at the very least, the specific sphere in which she operated. And though numerous challenges still lay on the horizon, Olivia was certain of one thing. As long as she remained unwavering in her principles and her dignity, nothing could possibly defeat her. This narrative had transcended her individual experience. It now belonged to every person courageous enough to assert their self-respect and dignity throughout their lives. The instant Olivia descended from the stage, the reverberations of her speech continued to propagate, not only throughout the conference venue but also with remarkable speed across the global landscape. Her words acted as a refreshing balm, reaching the hearts of millions far beyond the confines of the business world or opulent auditoriums. Within days, Olivia's powerful message had evolved into a worldwide phenomenon across social media platforms, in printed publications, and on television broadcasts. Countless individuals, particularly young women of color, discovered in her journey a profound source of genuine inspiration. They deeply identified with her narrative, having themselves encountered disdain, discrimination, and subtle forms of pressure in their daily existence. Hashtags such as #dignity, above all, and #respect is priceless trended virally across every conceivable platform, from university campuses and corporate offices to large-scale public demonstrations. Olivia had transcended her role as a successful businesswoman. She had become a living embodiment of courage, self-respect, and integrity. Prominent academic institutions in the United States and internationally began extending invitations for her to deliver specialized lectures, where thousands of students intently absorbed her first-hand insights. One by one, young individuals stepped forward to articulate how Olivia's story had instilled in them the confidence to assert their intrinsic value and their fundamental rights. Non-profit organizations and advocacy groups championing women's rights and racial equality actively celebrated and amplified her message. They leveraged her example to illustrate that true empowerment stems not from wealth, social standing, or influence, but from self-respect and the unwavering resolve to stand firm under duress. Olivia's impact soon garnered substantial endorsement from esteemed leaders and influencers across a multitude of disciplines. Among these was the renowned actor and activist Cynthia Brooks, who publicly declared on national television, "Olivia Bennet has imparted a crucial lesson regarding the inherent worth of every human being. She serves as a constant reminder never to compromise our self-respect, regardless of the allure of material gain." I am proud to align myself with her principles, and I firmly believe the world would be a better place if more individuals emulated her example. Senior executives at leading corporations also conveyed their profound admiration, characterizing Olivia's narrative as a powerful testament to the ethical standards and social accountability that every enterprise must uphold. Samuel Harris, chairman of Sterling Global and one of Olivia's newly established partners, remarked, "Our decision to collaborate with Olivia Bennet was predicated not solely on her exceptional business acumen, but equally on the profound character and ethical principles she steadfastly upholds in the corporate arena. That courage to champion dignity and justice is precisely what we need most." In stark contrast to Olivia's escalating success and burgeoning influence, Michael Hartley found himself increasingly isolated and increasingly desperate. Every accolade bestowed upon Olivia through media channels felt like a stinging reminder of his own diminished standing, a further assault upon his wounded pride. He understood his loss went beyond a mere business transaction or a public relations skirmish. He had been vanquished in the battle against his own vanity. Seated in solitude within his dimly lit executive office, Michael observed the image of Olivia, exuding confidence and unwavering resolve, dominating his screens. He attempted to shut them down, but discovered an inescapable truth encroaching upon him. The reverence she inspired, the public's unwavering faith, none of it could be acquired through wealth or dominance. "I am truly beaten," Michael murmured, acknowledging for the first time a defeat he could no longer evade or disregard. Across town, Olivia concluded a demanding day and sat in quiet contemplation by her office window. Removed from the world's cacophony, she maintained her humility and discretion, never permitting herself to be overwhelmed by accolades. She recognized that authentic strength resided not in external validation, but in the capacity to remain steadfast to one's fundamental principles, irrespective of shifting external circumstances. Sarah Mitchell entered unobtrusively and regarded her with a look of profound, heartfelt admiration. "Olivia, you may not fully comprehend it, but you have profoundly impacted innumerable lives. You've demonstrated that nothing possesses greater fortitude than integrity and self-regard." Olivia reciprocated her smile, her gaze still demure, yet now illuminated with a quiet, genuine pride. "Sarah, my sole aspiration is that if even a single individual rediscovers their inherent value through this narrative, then all that I have endured will have been worthwhile." In that pivotal instant, Olivia realized she was no longer merely an entrepreneur or an ordinary individual. She had evolved into an emblem of virtue, uprightness, and self-assurance, an icon that transcended any perceived limitations she had once harbored. Her existence was no longer solely for her own benefit. She now personified the aspirations and convictions of countless others, anticipating someone to champion those very same principles. The overwhelming triumphs and widespread acclaim for Olivia did not solely imbue numerous individuals with hope. They propelled the Hartley Corporation into an even more profound and inescapable predicament. Each of Olivia's accomplishments served as a stark reminder that authority and prominence devoid of ethical conduct and human consideration were destined for collapse. In the ensuing months, Hartley plunged into unprecedented instability. Its stock valuation plummeted relentlessly. Key investors withdrew their support sequentially, and long-standing collaborators lost faith in any prospect of reputational restoration. Public indignation and calls for boycotts intensified, compelling the corporation to announce a sweeping reorganization strategy merely to salvage its dwindling remnants. Yet, it was universally understood that this restructuring represented merely the initial phase of an arduous and protracted undertaking. Michael Hartley, once the inheritor of immense affluence and sway, became the focal point of derision and ostracization. He found himself actively avoiding the contemptuous glances of those who had previously admired or feared him. His former haughtiness yielded to caution, apprehension, and an overwhelming sense of solitude that was entirely new to him. One day, in the stillness of the Hartley estate, Richard Hartley entered Michael's private study. His customary self-assured demeanor had dissipated, supplanted by an aura of weariness and disappointment. Meeting his son's gaze, he spoke with a low, resentful inflection. "Michael, I had always presumed our wealth and power would safeguard you from your own errors in judgment. However, on this occasion, I was mistaken. You have paid a far too substantial price for a lesson I should have imparted to you a considerable time ago." Michael regarded his father with palpable regret and a sense of utter powerlessness. "I acknowledge that, Father, but is it now too late?" Richard paused, then slowly inclined his head. "Perhaps not entirely too late, but the path forward will be exceedingly arduous. You must truly grasp that genuine influence is not derived from financial assets or social standing, but rather from earned respect, self-respect, and unwavering moral integrity. This is the most invaluable insight Olivia Bennet has bestowed upon us." At that precise juncture, Olivia was seated in her office, gently concluding the final documents of a demanding workday. Her mobile device vibrated, displaying a singular text message from Sarah Mitchell. "Olivia, you have achieved victory, but more significantly, you have fundamentally altered public perception regarding influence and human value." Olivia offered a gentle smile, gazing out her window. She reflected upon her most challenging moments, times when all endeavors seemed insurmountable. Now she understood that those trials had been profoundly worthwhile, as they had paved the way for today's meaningful and transformative outcome. 1 year following that momentous upheaval, Olivia Bennet was recognized as one of the most impactful figures in both the corporate realm and society at large, not solely for her business acumen, but primarily for the potent message she consistently championed: that respect and dignity are inalienable and can never be supplanted by any material acquisition. As for the Hartleys, following months of strenuous organizational adjustments, they began a gradual emergence from the shadow of the crisis. Nevertheless, it was evident to all that they had irrevocably forfeited the unreserved trust society had once placed in them. The consequence they incurred extended beyond mere financial or reputational damage. It represented a stark and impactful realization regarding character and ethical conduct. Michael Hartley, now considerably more circumspect and deliberately avoiding the public spotlight, discreetly contributed to various philanthropic organizations. Perhaps, at long last, he was beginning to apprehend the authentic significance of respect and humility. However, he also recognized that the journey to regaining the esteem of those he had wronged would be lengthy and fraught with considerable obstacles. In the interim, Olivia continued to inspire a multitude of young individuals, particularly women of color who were striving to claim their rightful value. She had become the embodiment of integrity, self-regard, and honor, a living testament to the principle that regardless of how harsh the world may appear, human dignity remains unconquerable as long as we adhere resolutely to our principles and convictions. Consequently, Olivia Bennet's narrative transcended that of a formidable businesswoman confronting affront. It evolved into a profound exploration of the true essence of power and achievement. Authentic strength lies not in accumulated wealth or elevated social standing, but in the inherent capability to preserve one's self-respect, ethical compass, and dignity through every adversity life presents. What is your experience? Have you ever encountered a comparable dilemma, choosing between upholding your dignity and pursuing material benefits? Please share your personal story in the comments section below. If you found this narrative to be resonant, kindly bestow a like, share this video, and subscribe for access to more inspirational stories in the future. Thank you for participating in our discourse.